संसार दावा नललीढलोका त्राणाय कारुण्यागनागनात्वां
संसार दावा नललीढलोका त्राणाय
प्राप्तस्य कल्याणगुणार्णवस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
प्राप्तस्य कल्याणगुणार्णवस्य वन्दे गुरो
महाप्रभो कीर्तन नृत्य गीता वादित्रमाद्यान्मनसोरसेना
महाप्रभु कीर्तन नृत्य गीता वादित्रमाद्यान्मनसोरसेना
रोमाञ्चकम्पाशुतरङ्गबाजो वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
रोमाञ्चकम्पाशुतरङ्गबाजो वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
श्रीविग्रहाराधननित्यनाना शृङ्गारतान्मान्दिरमार्जुनादो
श्रीविग्रहाराधननित्यनाना शृङ्गारतान्मान्दिरमार्जुनादो
युक्तस्य भक्तां शनियुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
युक्तस्य भक्तां शनियुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
चतुर्विधा श्रीभगवत्प्रसादो स्वाद्वन्न तृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्घा
चतुर्विधा श्री भगवत्प्रसादो स्वाद्वन्न तृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्घा
कृत्वैव तृप्तिं भजता सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
कृत्वैव तृप्तिं भजता सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
श्रीराधिका माधवयोरपार माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्ना
श्रीराधिका माधवयोरपार माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्ना प्रतीक्षणास्वादनलोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् प्रतीक्षणास्वादनलोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् निकुञ्जयूनो रतिकेली सिद्ध्यै यायालिभिर्योक्तिरपेक्षणीया निकुञ्जयूनो रतिकेली सिद्ध्यै
तत्रादिदाक्षादतिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दाम्
तत्रादिदाक्षादतिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
साक्षाधरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रैरुक्तस्तथा भाव्यतैव साध्भिः
साक्षाधरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रैरुक्तस्तथा भाव्यतैव साध्भिः
किन्तु प्रभोर्य प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दाम्
किन्तु प्रभोर्य प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादान्न गति कुतोऽपि
यस्य प्रसाद भगवत्प्रसाद यस्य प्रसाद न गति कुतोऽपि
ध्यायन्तु वांस्तस्य यशस्त्रीसान्ध्यां वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दाम्
ध्यायन्तु वांस्तस्य यशस्त्रीसान्ध्यां वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दाम्
वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दाम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दाम्
वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने
नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने
नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरा भक्तवृंद जय श्री
कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरा भक्तवृंद
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya
Shri Krishna
Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hari Haraya Nama, Krishna Yadavaya Nama.
Hare Nama, Krishna Yadavaya Nama.
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha.
Yadavaya Madhavaya Kesavaya Namaha.
Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana.
Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana.
Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohana.
Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohana.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Ram Ram.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jai Jai Prabhupada, Jai Jai Prabhupada.
Nitai Gaura Haribol, Haribol, Nitai Gaura Haribol.
Nitai Gaura Haribol, Nitai Gaura Haribol.
Nitai Gaur Premanande.
जय विष्णुपाद परम प्रभाजकाचार्य सूत्र शिष्य महादिवान ग्रेस अभय चरमिन भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। इस्कॉन प्रतिष्ठा विधि संस्थापकाचार्य वैष्णव शिरोमणि पतित पावन श्री प्रभुपाद जी महाराज की जय। श्री गौर्य गुरु वर्ग पतित उद्धार की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भक्त रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भक्त दास गुण सदगोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर जी की जय। अनंत गुरु वैष्णव वृंद की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री द्वैत गदाधर शिव श्री गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। जय परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय। जय प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन के जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद स्मरण गौरव श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि मोहन नाय अवतार की जय। गोलोकेर प्रमधान हरिनाम संकीर्तन जग की जय। जोग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। बृहद मितांग ट्रांसलेटर बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय। शिष्य राधा कृष्ण गोप राधा कुंद श्याम कुंद गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय। श्री ब्रज वृंदावन मथुर धाम की जय। तेलो शिव शिष्य राधा नील माधव की जय। श्री मायापुर नवद्वीप एक चक्र धाम की जय। परम करुण शिष्य गौर निताय की जय। श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय। श्री राम लक्ष्मण भक्त हनुमान जी की जय। भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विनाशना करुष्ण भगवान की जय। जय गंगा माय जमुना माई की जय। तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री मथुरा धारानी की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। निताय गौर हरि परमानंदे। All glories to somebody bodies. All glories to somebody bodies. All glories to somebody bodies. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga.
Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Praladadayine.
Praladadadayine.
Hiranyakashipurvakshaha. Shilatankanakalaye.
Silatankanakalaye.
Ito Narasimha Parato Narasimha.
Itani Singha Paratani Singha.
Yato yato yami tato Narasimha.
Jato Jato Jamitato Nisingha.
Mahe Narasimha Hridaye Narasimha.
Vai Nisingha Hridaye Nisingha.
Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prapade.
Narasingha Madim Sarana Prapade.
Tava Karakamalavare-nakam Adbhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare.
Tava Karakamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringam Kesavadita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare.
Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare.
Jaya Kesavadita Narari Rupa Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare.
Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha.
Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha.
Jaya Pralad Maharaj Jaya Pralad Maharaj Jaya Pralad Maharaj Jaya Pralad Maharaj.
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev.
Jaya Jaya Haribo, Haribo, Nitya Gaur Haribo. जय श्री श्री भक्ति पर सर्विघ्नाश न कनु सिंहरे भगवान की जय। भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। ताई गौर हरि प्रमानंदे हरिबो। श्री वृंदाई तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी शतवत्ताय नमो नमः। वृंदाई तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी शतवत्ताय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी शतवत्ताय नमो नमः। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। नमो नमो तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमो तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमो राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो एयो विलासी। राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो एयो विलासी। नमो नमो तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमो तुलसी। ये तुम्हारा शरण ला तारा बंच पूर्ण। कृपा करी करतरे वृंदावन वासी। तुम्हें कृपा करी करतरे वृंदावन वासी। नमो नमो मोराया बेला विलास कुंज दियावा। nayane ribo sada jugala ruparasi. Nivedana dara sakirano gata koro. Sevaya de koro diye koro nijadasi. Dina Krishna das koi eye namorao. Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayinda Vasi. Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayinda Vasi. Jani kani sapapani brahmatari kani sa tani tani pranasanti pradakshina pade pade. Jani kani sapapani brahmatari kani sa tani tani pranasanti pradakshina pade pade. Jani kani sapapani brahmatari kani sa tani tani pranasanti pradakshina pade pade. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Brinda Devi Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Brinda Devi. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo. Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai, Priyaya Kesava Satya, Vishnu Bhakti Pradi Devi, Shrutavata Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai, Priyaya Kesava Satya, Vishnu Bhakti Pradi Devi, Shrutavata Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Devai, Priyaya Kesava Satya, Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi, Shatavataye Namo Namaha. Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Oh Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. May we take shelter of you as wishes fulfilled. My desire is that you also give me residence in the grove of Shri Vrindavan. As within my vision, I would always behold beautiful pastime to Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a forward character. Please give me the privilege of this devotional service and make me your own man servant. This very full and holy servant Krishna. May I always sing with love Shri Radha and Govind. Jai Srimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Nayanam Galora Shudharaya Padanam Gadagadavaya Gira Ulakai Vichitam Babu Kada Tabanam Akahane Vavisati Juga Itam Nimishena Jakusha Pravisa Itam Shunya Itam Jagata Sarvam Govinda Viraheman Asli Shava Padaratam Pinastumam Atarshana Marma Hatam Karatuva Tadadhava Vidadatulam Pato Matra Matastu Saivana Para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years, and extinguishes the fire of condition of life with repeated birth and death. This some kingdom moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large. God is praised the raised the benediction moment. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste from the nectar for which we're always anxious. Oh my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. There is not even hard and fast for chanting these names. Oh my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy name. I'm so important that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than a straw on the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. Only one your cause that devotes from service, birth after birth. O son of Maharajananda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, I'm royal. I'm falling in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. Oh my Lord, oh will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name. Will my voice choke up when the hairs in my body stand on end by the citation of your name. Oh Govinda, feeling your separation, or consider a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and surely man, so even if some does him roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me, he is completely free to do anything and everything, but he's always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally.
To blaspheme devotees who dedicate their lives to propagating holy names of the Lord. To consider names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be independent. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature in pursuance of the Vedic version. To consider glorious chanting Hare Krishna as imagination. 6. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. Consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in the Vedas as a 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. 10. To not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpatarabhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhyeva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Vaishnava Thakur Ki Jai. Namah Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatane. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate
Janmadasya Yato Niviyad Itaratas Charte Swavigya Swarat Tene Brahma Hirdaya Adhikavaye Muyanti Yatsurayaha Tejo Varimadam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Misha Damna Svena Sadanirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi. O my Lord Shri Krishna, Son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute
I
truth
meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because the absolute
and the primeval cause of all
and the
causes,
primary cause of all
of the
causes,
creation, sustenance, and destruction of
of
manifested
the creation,
universes.
sustenance, and destruction of manifested
He is
universes.
directly and indirectly conscious of all
He is
manifestations.
directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
And he's independent because there's no other cause
And
beyond
he's
him.
independent because there's no other cause
It
beyond
is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of
him. It
Brahmaji,
is you who first imparted the Vedic knowledge.
the original living being.
The original.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion,
By him, the sage and demigods are placed into illusion.
as one is bewildered by the illusory
As one
representations
is bewildered by the illusory
of water
representations
seen on fire or land seen
of
on
water,
water.
sun, fire, land, sea,
Only because of him do the material universes,
because of him, do the material universes,
temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three
temporarily
modes of nature,
manifested by the reaction of three modes of nature,
appear factual although they are unreal.
appear factual, although
I
they are
therefore
real.
meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna,
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri
who
Krishna,
is eternally existent in the transcendental abode,
whose eternal existence,
which is forever free from the illusory representations of the
which is
material world.
forever free from the illusory representation.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute
I
truth.
meditate upon him for his absolute
Dharma projita kaitravota,
Dharma Pujita Kaito
paramo nirmatsaranam satam,
Brahmo Nirmasana
vedyam vastavam atra vastu,
Vedam Vastavam Astavam
shivadam tapa trayamula,
Shivadam Tapo
shrimad bhagavate mahamuni krite,
Bhagavate Mahamani
kim vapurer ishvaraha,
Vaparishvara
sadyo hridya varudyate cha,
Sadyavritya Varudyate
kriti bihi sususubhistakshana.
He Shishishishta
Completely rejecting all religious sectaries which are materially motivated.
Completely rejecting all religious activities.
This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth,
This Bhagavad Purana propounds the
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
which is understandable by those who are fully pure.
The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
The highest truth, the reality distinguished from illusion.
Such truth uproots the threefold
Such
miseries.
truth uproots the twofold miseries.
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in its maturity
This beautiful Bhagavad compiled by great sage Vyasadeva
is sufficient in itself for God realization.
sufficient itself for God
What is the
realization.
need of any other
What is the
scripture?
need of the other scripture?
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of
As
Bhagavatam,
soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of
by this
Bhagavad,
culture of
by this
knowledge,
culture of
the
knowledge,
Supreme Law is established within his heart.
Supreme Law is established within his
Nigama kalpataro galitam phalam,
Nigama Kalpataro Garitam
sukhamukad amrita dravya samyatam,
Dravya Sangitam
pibata Bhagavatam rasamalayam,
Nibada Bhagavatam Rasamalaya
muhur aho raska bhuvi bhavakaha. O expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desired tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of C. Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Shinvatam Swakita Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Hidyam Takstoi Bhadrani, Vidunati Sritsatam. To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures, or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita, is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best wishing friend, and purifies a devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. Nasta presu bhadresu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utamasloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
He becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
Tadarajastamo bhava kamalobhadayaschaye chete taranavidam stitvam sattve prasidati. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance,
One becomes free from the modes of passion
and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
thus material lust and avarice.
Evam prasana manaso bhagavat bhakti yogataha bhagavat tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. Vidyate hridaya grantis chidyante sarvasamsaya shiyante cha shikarmani drista evat manishware. Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the heart not of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram, understanding of the supreme absolute truth, personality of God.
understanding the supreme absolute truth, personality of God.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna, from his devotion, Krishna consciousness,
can one understand the science
can
of
one
Krishna.
understand the science of Krishna.
Shri Shri Guru Vastika prayers, Gijay. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it.
The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it.
So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence.
So the spiritual master delivers the material afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto Lotus Feet as such a spiritual master.
Offer my respectful obeisance to Lord Jesus, such a spiritual master.
Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments.
Chanting the holy name, dancing, singing, playing musical instruments.
The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya
The spiritual
Mahaprabhu.
master always gladdened with the Sankirtan movement of the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind.
Because he's relishing the mellow of pure devotion with me.
Sometimes his hair stands on end.
Sometimes his hair stands
He
on
feels
end.
quivering in his body,
He feels quivering in his body.
and tears flow from his eyes like waves.
And tears flow from his eyes like waves.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto Lotus Feet as such a spiritual
I
master.
offer my respectful obeisance to the Lord's feet as such a spiritual
The
master.
spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Shri Radha and Krishna.
The spiritual master always engaged in temple worship of Shri Shri Radha.
He also engages his disciples in such worship.
He also engages his disciples in such a worship.
They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments,
They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments.
clean their temple,
Clean their
and
temple.
perform other similar worship of the Lord.
And perform other similar worship.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto Lotus Feet as such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance to the Lord's feet as such a spiritual
The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food.
The master always offering Krishna for kind of delicious food.
Analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked.
And that's which is licked, chewed, drunk, and
When the
sucked.
spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavat Prasada,
When the spiritual master sees that the Lord is satisfied by eating Bhagavad
he is
Gita,
satisfied.
he is
I offer my respectful obeisance unto Lotus Feet as such a spiritual
I
master.
offer my respectful obeisance to the Lord's feet as such a spiritual
The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava.
The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika Mata
And their qualities, names, and
and
forms.
their qualities, names,
The
and
spiritual
forms.
master aspires to relish these at every moment.
The spiritual master aspires to relish these.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto Lotus Feet as such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance to Lord's feet as such a
The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana.
The spiritual master is very dear because he's expert in assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan.
I offer my most humble obeisance unto Lotus Feet as such a spiritual
I
master.
offer my humble obeisance unto Lord's feet as such a spiritual master.
The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servant of the Lord.
The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he's the most confidential servant of the
This is
Lord.
acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities.
This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all.
Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto Lotus Feet of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna.
Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto Lord of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna.
By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna.
By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receive the benediction of
Without the
Krishna.
grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any
Without
advancement.
the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advance.
Therefore, I should always Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master.
Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master.
At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my
At least 3
spiritual
times a
master.
day. I should offer my respectful obeisance to Lord to my spiritual master.
Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha, Anadiraja Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam.
Ishvara Parama Krishna Sakchit Ananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karana
Chintamani Prakara Satma Sukalpa Vriksha,
Chintamani Prakata Sadna Sukalpa Viksha
Lakshavrite Susurabhira Vipalyantam,
Lakshya Vitesi Surabhira Vipalaya
Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambrahma Sevyamanam,
Lakshmi Sahasha Sata Sambrahma Sevyaman
Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami,
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Venam Gunanta Aravinda Dalayataksam,
Venum Kwanantam Aravinda Dayalata
Parhabhatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam,
Bharam Vata Samasitam Buddha Sundaram
Kandarpa Kotikamaniya Vishesha Sobham,
Kandarpa Kautika Maniya Vishesha
Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami,
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Alola Chandra Kalasadvanamalya Vamsi
Alola Chandra Kalasarvanamali
Ratnam Gidam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam
Ranangadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam
Shyamam Tribangala Litani Yata Prakasam
Syamam Tribangala Litani Yata Prakasham
Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham
Angani Yasya Sakalandriya Vrittimanti
Angani Yasha Sakilindriya Vrittimanti
Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti
Pasyanti Panti Kalayanti Chiram Jaganti
Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya
Ananda Chinmaya Sadujjala Vigraha
Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham
Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam
Advitam Achyutam Anantam Anantam
Adyam Purana Purisham Navayovanam Cha
Adyam Purana Purusham Navajovanam Cha
Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya
Vedeshu Durlabham
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Vedesa Durlavam Adurlavam Atma Bhakta
Vedeshu Durlabham Adurlabham Atma
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham
Pantastakoti Satavatsara Sampragamyo
Antastukoti Satasvata
Vayora Tapi Manasomuni Pungamanam
Vayuratapi Manaso
Sopyastiyat Prapadasimya Vichintya Tattve
Yasi Yatra Parasim
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Adi Purusham
Ekopya Soda Chaitam Jagadanda Kotim
Ekapya Soye Shasitum
Yasyakti Rasti Jagadanda Chaya Yadanta
Chakti Rasi Jagananda Chaya
Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam
Andam Taramsta Paramanu Chayantarashta
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Adi Purusham
Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajasta Taiva
Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manujasta
Samprapya Rupa Mahimasanayana Bhusa
Prape Rupa Mahima Sanayana
Taryameva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti
Yameva Nigama Prasitestu
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham
Ananda Chinmaya Rasapati Bhavita Vis
Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavita
Tabir Yaeva Nijarupa Tayakalabi
Daviya Eva Nija Rupa Dayakala
Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuta
Goloka Eva Nivasatya Kilatma
Bhuto Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham
Pramanjanap Churita Bhakti Vilochanena
Premanjana Chuhrita Bhakti Vilochana
Santak Sadeva Hidayesu Vilokayanti
Dasadeva Hrideshu Vilokaya
Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam
Syama Sundaram Achintya Guna Swarupa
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Adi Purusham Tamaham
Ramadi Murti Sukalani Menatistam
Ramadi Murti Sakalani Yamena Tista
Nana Avatara Makarod Bhuvanesu Kintu
Nana Vatara Karod Bhuvanushki
Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumamyo
Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham
Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Koti
Yasha Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Koti
Koti Swasesu Vasudadi Vibhuti Binam
Koti Asvashesha Vasudari Vibhuti Vinda
Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Abhut Ashesha Bhutom
Brahma Niskalam Anantam
Sesha Bhutam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham
Maya Hiyasya Jagananda Satani Sute
Maya Yasha Jagadananta Satani Sutra
Trigunya Tad Vishaya Veda Vitayamanam
Trigunyatar Vishaya Veda Vitayama
Sattvam Bhalambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam
Sarva Valambi Param Sattva Visuddha Sattva
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham
Ananda Chinmaya Rasatmataya Manasu
Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manash
Ya Praninam Pratifulam Smaratam Upetya Lilayatena
Yapranam
Bhuvanani
Smaratam Upi
Lilayatena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram
Lila Yitena Bhuvanani Jadajajas
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham
Goloka Namni Nijadamni Tale Chatasya
Goloka Nami Jadam Dali Satas
Devi Mahesha Haridama Sute Sutesu Tete
Mahesha
Prabhavani
Haridama
Chaya
Sute
Vitasi Tete Prabhavani Chaya Vitascha Yena
Tete Prabhavani Jaya Vitascha
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham
Shristi Stati Pralaya Sada Vasakti Reka
Sthiti Sthiti Pralaya Sadhana Shakti Reka
Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga
Jayeva Yasa Bhuvani Vibhati
Ichana Rupam Apiyasya Chachesta Tesa
Ichanupam Abhyasa Chatatista
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Shiram Yata Dadi Vikara Vishesha Yoga
Kiram Yata Dadi Vikara Vishesha Yoga
Sanjayate Nahitata Pritagasti Heto
Sanjayate Nahidata Pitakaistu Eto
Yasam Bhutam Apitata Samapaitikaryat
Yasam Bhutam Abhidata Samupaitika
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham
Diparchadeva Hidasaktaram Abhyupetya
Dipachi Eva Isatantaram Upapetya
Dipayate Vivita Hetu Samana Dharma
Dipate Vivitu Itu Samana
Yastadrikeva Hicha Vishnu Taya Vibhati
Yastadi Eva Nicha Vishnu
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Tamadi Purusham
Yakarna Narna Vajale Bhajatisma Yoga
Yakaranandava Jalevi Jatis
Nidramananta Jagananda Saroma Kopaha
Nidram Ananta Jagananda Sarum
Adhara Shaktim Avalambya Param Swamurtim
Adhara Shakti Malabandya Param Sumurti
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham
Yasyaika Nisvasitakala Matavalambya
Yasheka Nisasita Kalamata
Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadanda Nataha
Roma Vijaya Jagananda
Vishnu Mahansahi Yasya Kala Vishesho
Vishnu Mahansa Yashakala
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham
Pasvan Yatasma Sakalesu Nijesu Tejaha
Vashvan Yatasma Sakaleshu Nijestu Teja
Swiyam Kiyat Prakatayat Apitadvadatra
Priyam Kiya Prakataya Jatapidvatanda
Brahma Yaesa Jagadanda Vidana Karta
Ramaya Esha Jagananda Vidana
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham
Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha
Jatpara Pala Vajugam Vidaya Kumbha
Dvande Pranama Samayesu Ganadi Rajaha
Vene Pranama Samayena Dadadati Raju
Vignan Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya
Vignam Vihantu Malamasya Jagatrayasya
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham
Agnir Mahiga Ganamambu Marudisascha
Agnin Maye Gagana Ambu Maruti
Kalastatatma Manasitti Jagatrayani
Kala Satarma Manasiti
Yasmad
Jagatraya
Bhavanti Vibhavanti Vishanti Yamcha
Yasma Bhavanti Vibhavinti
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Adi Purusham Tamaham
Yaschaksuresa Savita Sagala Grahanam
Yachashu Esha Savita Sakala Graham
Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Tejaha
Raja Samasta Suramurti Rashesha
Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro
Yasya Gana Brahmani Samhita
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Damadi Purusham Tamaham
Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Srutayastapamsi
Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Sutayas Tattvamsi
Brahma Dikita Patagava Dayasta Jivaha
Ramadi Kita Patagada Padayas Chajiva
Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakata Prabhava
Yadda Tamata Vibhava Prakata
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Damadi Purusham
Yastrinda Gopa Matavendra Mahoswakarma
Yatvinda Nagopa Matavindra
Vandana Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti
Banda Nurupam Palabhajana
Karmani Nirdhati Kintu Bhakti Bhajam
Karmani Nidahati Kintu Chapakti Bhajan
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Damadi Purusham
Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Bitti
Yam Kruda Kama Sahaja Pranayati
Vatsalya Moha Guru Gaurava Sevya Bhava
Salyamo Guragora Visevya
Bhava Hai Sanchintya Tasya Sadrisim Tanamapurete
Sanchinta Dasha Sadrisim Tanum Apure
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Damadi Purusham
Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravu
Shreya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha
Druma Bhumish Chintamani Ganamayi Toyam Amritam
Duma Muvishinta Manigana Mayi Priyam Amrita
Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriya Saki
Katam Ganam Nacham Gananam Pradevam Sipriya
Chidalandam Jyotiparam Apitad Aswadyam Apicha
Siranandam Jyoti Paramapita Advadi
Sayatra Shiradi Bihi Shavati Surabi Vyascha Sumahan
Sayita Kiranabi Smriti Surabhyacha
Nime Sardakyo Vavrajati Nahiyatrapi Samaya
Nimisha Dakyuja Vijabe Nai
Bhaje
Vijaya
Sweta Dvipam Tamaham Iha Golakam Itiyam
Majisveta Rupam Tamaham Iya Guluka Itim Cha
Vidantaste Santakshiti Viralachara Katipaye
Dantatam Kishanta Kiti Virala Charakati
Shisho Parashadi Ki Jai Om Punam Madha Punamidam Purnat Purnamudachate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate
Om Purnam Purnamada Purnamidam Purnama Purnamudashate Purnasha Purnam Adaya Purnam Iva Vishati
Ishavashamidam Sarvam Jatkinja Jagatyam Jagat Tena Taktena Bunjitaha Mahagritaha Kushisviddanam
Ishavashamidam Sarvam Yakinchi Jagat Tena Chektena Punjita
Purvan evaha karmani jajiva chekchatam samaha evam tvayi nandyatetosti na karma lipite nare.
Purvanam ivaya karmani vichachatam samaha evam trahi tejusti nakarma dipyate.
Asuryanamate loka andena tamasafritaha tamste pritya vikachanti yeke chatmahano janaha.
Asuranamate loka adena tamasubrita tamste pratyavi gachanti ekancham nahano janaha.
Anajadika manaso javiyo naina devam apravam pravan masata davato jnana teti tista tasmin apumata visvadadati.
Anijandika manaso jiviyo medam deva anupam puvam anani dal bhavatu yama cheritistan tasmin apo
Tade jati tane jati tadure tadvantike tadantarasya sarvasya tadu sarvasya syavayataha.
Parijati tannaijati parijveta antikite tarantarasya sarvasya karo sarvasya.
Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmani evanupasyati sarvabhutesu chatmanam tatuna vichikap gupsate.
Yastu sarvani bhutani almani eva nupapsati sarvabhuteshu chatmanam tato naivijogapsati.
Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmeva budvijanataha tatrako mahakaha sukha ekatvam anupasyataha.
Yasmin sarvani bhutani almava bhudvijannataha tatra kumo atkashoka evatam anupapsataha.
Saprayagas chukramakayam avrinam asnaviram apapavidam asnaviram sudam apapavidam kavir manisi paribhu swayambhu yatatat yatorutan vyadadas chasvatipyaha samabhyaha. Avyam asnaviram sudam apapavidam kavir manisi paribhu swayambhu yatatat yatorutan vyadadas chasvatipyaha samabhyaha. Antam tamaha pravisanti vyevidyam upasyate tato bhuyayavate tamo yayu vidyayam rataha.
Anam tama prasishanti yevidyam upasate tato bhuya ivata tamo yavu vidyanarataha.
Anyat evahur vidyaya anyadahura vidyaya iti susrumadiranam yenastad vichachakshire.
Anyadeva vidya nyahaura vidya isi sushusum dhiranam yanasta vichakshati.
Vidyam cha yasyastad vedavayam saha vidyaya militan ritva vidyayam ritamasnute.
Vidyam cha darvirodavayam saha avidyayam ruchum chitva vidyatmatmitamasnute.
Antam tamaha pravisanti ye sambhutim upasyate tato bhuyayavate tamo yayu sambhutam rataha.
Anam tama pravishanti ye samritim upapsate tato bhuya evata tamo navo samritam rata.
Anyadevahur sambhavat anyadahur sambhavat iti susrumadiranam sambhutam yenastad vichachakshire.
Anyadeva sambhavat anyahu sambhavat iti susrumdaranam nayastar vishakshire.
Sambhutim cha vinasam cha yastad vedavayam saha vinasena militum chidva sambhutam ritamasnute.
Samritam cha vishanaya cha yastar ovadodaya chaha vinaya samritam chitva samritam ritam
Hiranmayana patrena satyasya pitam mukam tatvam pusam apavinu satyadharma yadristaye.
Hiranmayena patrena satyatapitana mukham tatapam pusham aprintu satyadamaya.
Kusaleka seyamasriya prajapatya vyuharasmin samaho teja yate rupam kayanatamam tate pasyami yo savaso purushaha sohamasme.
Kusamekashe yamasuriya prakatayitya yudyamasmin asmatejo yade rupam katyatamam tate pasyami yuyamasno apurushaha.
Vayuranilamam ritam atedam basmantam sarinam om krato smara kritam smara krato smara kritam smara.
Vayuranilam amritam adidam prasantam shriram om kratu smara kritam smara kratu smara kritam smara.
Om Agnena Supatara Yasman Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vidvan Yuhodachmas Juhuranameyo Bhuyastam Te Nama Uktim Vidnama Om Tatsat.
Atmane supatayara yasma vishnadeva vidyuradidam yudhit asman yuranam eno yudhistam te nama uktim videma.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, verse number 42. Adyo Vatara Purusha Parasya
Tara purusha parasha
Kala Swabhava Sadasan Manascha
Kala Swabhava Sarasam Manascha
Gravyam Vikaro Guna Indriyani
Dravyam Vikaro Guna Indrayani
Virat Swarat Sasnu Charishnu Bhumna.
Virasvarastasnucha Vishnubhumna.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Karanadakshay Vishnu is the first incarnation of the Supreme Lord, and he is the master of eternal time, space, cause and effects, mind, the elements, the material ego, the modes of nature, the senses, the universal form of the Lord, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and the sum total of all living beings, both moving and non-moving. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. That the material creation is not permanent has been discussed many times herein before. The material creation is but a temporary exhibition of the material energy of the Almighty Lord. This material manifestation is necessary to give a chance to the conditioned souls who are unwilling to associate with the Lord in the relationship of loving transcendental service. Such unwilling conditioned souls are not allowed to enter into the liberated life of spiritual existence because at heart they are not willing to serve. Instead, they want to enjoy themselves as imitation gods. The living entities are constitutionally eternal servitors of the Lord, but some of them, because of misusing their independence, do not wish to serve. Therefore, they are allowed to enjoy the material nature, which is called Maya or illusion. It is called illusion because the living beings under the clutches of Maya are not factually enjoyers, although they think that they are, being illusioned by Maya. Such illusioned living entities are given a chance at intervals to rectify their perverted mentality of becoming false masters of the material nature, and they are imparted lessons from the Vedas about their eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Vedaishta sarviraham eva vedya. So the temporary creation of the material manifestation is an exhibition of the material energy of the Lord, and to manage the whole show, the Supreme Lord incarnates himself as Karanadakshay Vishnu, just as a magistrate is deputed by the government to manage affairs temporarily. This Karanadakshay Vishnu causes the manifestation of material creation by looking over his material energy. Sa Aikshata. In the first volume of this book, we have already discussed to some extent the explanation of the verse Jagrihe Purusham Rupam. The duration of the illusory play of material creation is called a kalpa, and we have already discussed the creations taking place in kalpa after kalpa. By his incarnation and potential activities, the complete ingredients of creation, namely time, space, cause, result, mind, the gross and subtle elements and their interactional modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, and then the senses and their reservoir source, the gigantic universal form as the second incarnation, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and all living beings, both moving and standing, which come out of the second incarnation, all became manifested. Ultimately, all these creative elements and the creation itself are but potential manifestations of the Supreme Lord. Nothing is independent of the control of the Supreme Lord. This first incarnation in the material creation, namely Karanadakshay Vishnu, is the plenary part of the original personality of Godhead Sri Krishna described in the Brahma Samhita 5:48 as follows. Vishnu Mahansa Yasya Kalabhisheshu Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. All the innumerable universes are maintained only during the breathing period of Mahavishnu, or Karanadakshay Vishnu, who was only a plenary part of Govinda, the original personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Karanadakshay Vishnu is the first incarnation of the Supreme Lord, and he is the master of eternal time, space, cause and effects, mind, the elements, the material ego, the modes of nature, the senses, the universal form of the Lord, Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, and the sum total of all living beings, both moving and non-moving. So in the first canto, third chapter, verse number 1, there's an explanation of the verse Jagre Paurusham Rupam Bhagavan Mahad Adibihi Sambhutam Sodasakalam Adho Loka Sisrikshaya. Sutta Goswami said, in the beginning of the creation, the Lord first expanded himself in the universal form of the Purusha incarnation and manifested all the ingredients for the material creation. And thus, at first, there was the creation of the 16 principles of material action. This was for the purpose of creating the material universe. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Bhagavad Gita states that the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, maintains these material universes by extending his plenary expansions. So this Purusha form is the confirmation of the same principle. The original personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, or Lord Krishna, who is famous as the son of King Vasudeva, or King Nanda, is full with all opulences, all potencies, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation. Part of his opulences are manifested as impersonal Brahman, and part of his opulences are manifested as Paramatma. This Purusha feature of the same personality Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the original Paramatma manifestation of the Lord. There are 3 Purushas features in the material creation, and this form, who is known as Karanadakshayi Vishnu, is the first of the 3. The others are known as the Garbhodakshayi Vishnu and the Kshirodakshayi Vishnu, which we shall know one after another. The innumerable universes are generated from the skin holes of the Karanadakshayi Vishnu, and in each one of the universes, the Lord enters as the Garbhodakshayi Vishnu. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that it is also mentioned that the material world is created at certain intervals and then again destroyed. This creation and destruction is done by the Supreme Will because of the conditioned souls, or the Nityabada, living beings. The Nityabada, or the eternally conditioned souls, have the sense of individuality, or ahankara, which dictates them sense enjoyment, which they are unable to have constitutionally. The Lord is the only enjoyer, and all others are enjoyed. The living beings are predominated enjoyers, but the eternally conditioned souls, forgetful of this constitutional position, have strong aspirations to enjoy. The chance to enjoy matter is given to the conditioned souls in the material world, and side by side they are given a chance to understand the real constitutional position. Those fortunate living entities who catch the truth and surrender unto the lotus feet of Vasudeva, after many, many births in the material world, join the eternally liberated souls, and thus are allowed to enter into the kingdom of God. After this, such fortunate living entities need not come again within the occasional material creation, but those who cannot catch the constitutional truth are again merged into the Mahatattva at the time of the annihilation of the material creation. When the creation is again set up, this Mahatattva is again let loose. This Mahatattva contains all the ingredients of the material manifestations, including the conditioned souls. Primarily, this Mahatattva is divided into 16 parts, namely the 5 gross material elements and the 11 working instruments or senses. It is like the cloud in the clear sky. In the spiritual sky, the effulgence of Brahman is spread all around, and the whole system is dazzling in spiritual light. The Mahatattva is assembled in some corner of the vast, unlimited spiritual sky, and the part which is thus covered by the Mahatattva is called the material sky. This part of the spiritual sky, called the Mahatattva, is only an insignificant portion of the whole spiritual sky, and within the Mahatattva there are innumerable universes. All these universes are collectively produced by the Karana Vishnu, called also the Mahavishnu, who simply throws his glance to impregnate the material sky. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, this is a very important purport, right in the first canto, 3rd chapter, and explains all about Mahavishnu and Garbhodakshay Vishnu and Kshirodakshay Vishnu. They are called the Purushas. There are 3 Purushas. That means they are the real the persons who are enjoyers. And we, the conditioned living entities, we're false enjoyers. We're pretending to think that the purpose of life is material enjoyment. This is why material education is so dangerous, because the main theme of material education, whether it's mathematics or science or biology or social studies or any of those things, the main theme that permeates all those subjects is sense gratification. And so that type of education is extremely dangerous because it misleads people. They learn what is the false goal of material creation by going to these schools. And they come out of these schools thinking that they are the enjoyer. Just like sometimes people say, well, I'll see you later. Enjoy. What does that mean? They say, enjoy. That means that go and waste your life trying to enjoy the material world, you idiot. Say, that's what it means. And because of that, people suffer their whole life because they're misled. So there's no way to get out of this dilemma unless we're willing to listen carefully every day to Prabhupada's purports and Krishna's or the Acharya's verses. So to develop the sense that we are the predominated. And by the way, that is the whole purpose of the Bhagavad Gita. It's to learn that we are predominated, that we are not the controller. We are the controlled. And this is also said, and then also we have to learn what is the actual purpose of the material creation. The purpose of material creation, well, there are 2. One, for all the idiots, it's a chance to engage in sense gratification and pretend that I or you are God. And the second is that it's a chance to hear real knowledge about Krishna and develop the desire to engage in the devotional service of the Lord. So as long as we want to enjoy the fruits of our activities, we remain prisoners in the material world of birth and death. But as soon as we understand that we are the eternal servants of the Lord, and that is our constitutional position, that means that's what we are meant to be, then we gradually liberate ourselves from the clutches of material ignorance and come to the knowledge that I am the eternal servant of the Lord. So the idea of being a servant in the modern world is a bad thing. That means that you are controlled by somebody else. But actually, in the spiritual world, it's the most glorious thing, because when Krishna sees that someone is a sincere servant of the Lord, of himself, then Krishna likes to accept a subordinate position to such a person and come under their, let's say, control or protection. Now, this is very interesting. Why would the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's the Supreme Controller, like to be controlled? Because love is the greatest force in the material and spiritual world. So when we develop love, we're willing to do anything for our lover. And therefore the Lord is the cause of everything. So that means that everything that we experience in the material world exists in its purified form in the spiritual world. So in the material world, there are people who are very powerful, very strong, but who also agree to be controlled by others, although they seem to be the controller. Now, one example is during the pinnacle of the British Empire, of their power, the Prime Minister, who was at that time considered the most powerful person in the world, he accepted the visit of a high emissary from France, because at that time in the 19th century there was a 100 years war between England and France, and then later on there was the 30 Years' War. And so this high executive from France, he came to see the Prime Minister of the British Empire and to discuss, look, let's stop this, 30 Years' War, it's exhausting. Let's find a way to stop this. So when he came to see the Lord and Master, he was told by the secretary, he's very busy, you have to wait a little bit. He said, okay. So he waited 1 hour, and nothing happened. So he went to the secretary again. He was waiting in the outside office. I said, what's going on here? I came here on an important mission. I want to discuss how to stop this crazy 30-year war. And why he should see me right away? This is extremely important. She said, well, I'm sorry, sir. You have to wait. He's very busy right now. He'll get to you in time. So at one point, the secretary walks out of the office to go to the bathroom. And the French emissary, he said, oh, this is my chance. So he goes and opens the door a little bit of the Prime Minister's room and looks in to see what the guy's doing. And he was on the ground, and his grandson was sitting on his back and kicking him in the ribs. And he said, giddy up, horsey, giddy up. And he was going, and moving. So here's the most powerful man in the world who subordinates himself to his grandson out of love and becomes a horsey and lets him kick him in the ribs, you see. So this gives us an idea that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He creates millions and billions of universes, not just planets, but universes, and populates the world with unlimited numbers of living entities, and is present in the heart of every one of them. And he is the super soul of all living entities. And there's not only one universe, there are billions of universes, unlimited number of universes, material universes. And then besides that, there's the entire spiritual sky full of innumerable Vaikuntha planets. And then there's Goloka Vrindavan. Krishna is controlling all of this, plus the Brahmajyoti and the universal form. He's controlling all of this, but yet, when there's a devotee who sincerely loves him, he likes to subordinate himself to that devotee and accept an inferior position so he can reciprocate love, just like the big prime minister of British Empire, he subordinated himself to his little grandson and accepted to be kicked in the ribs and forced to go and make noise like a horse and drive his little let the little kid ride him around the room. So we have to learn about the transcendental pastimes of the Lord with his devotees to understand that there's something much, much greater than sense gratification in the material world, which is actually disgusting and actually the cause of misery. So the purpose of the material creation is two. One is to give a chance to the illusion living entities to attempt being a little god and predominator and enjoyer. But the real purpose is to give the living entities a chance to hear about Krishna and understand why he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and this knowledge is spoken by his pure devotees who are spreading the word of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam everywhere. So that's a very important point about this purport in the first canto, third chapter, first verse, as well as the verse today. Both are making this point that the living entity is not the factual enjoyer, although they think they are, being illusioned by Maya. So what does Maya do? It convinces us that we are the enjoyer. We are number one. Everybody else is number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but we are number one. So that false ego, that development of this misconception of who we actually are, puts us in a very, very difficult situation of being subject to birth, death, old age, and disease. So whenever there's suffering, and birth, death, old age, and disease are definitely suffering, there is illusion, because there's no reason to suffer. We only suffer because we accept something that's false. And then by accepting that false premise that we are the enjoyer, and that's the whole theme of modern education, that we are the enjoyer, then we waste our whole life engaging in sex and eating meat and gambling and intoxication. And you have places like Las Vegas and other places around the country where people can go gamble, have sex, eat meat, and speculate or gamble. So this is the sad state of human life in this modern age. So therefore it says, the living entities are constitutionally eternal servitors of the Lord, but some of them, because of misusing their independence, do not wish to serve. Therefore they are allowed to enjoy the material nature, which is called Maya, or illusion. It is called illusion because the living beings under the clutches of Maya are not factually enjoyers, although they think that they are, being illusioned by Maya. So they think that they are. How does that happen? Well, they see and hear things that lead them to think in such a way. Just like when you see some type of competition, and ultimately there's going to be one winner, and then a person comes in second, and a person comes in third, and a person comes in fourth, and then everybody else is a loser. So this kind of activities, these types of activities, create a sense of competition. And when there's that strong sense of competition, it inspires people to engage in all kinds of studies and practices. But all those practices, all those studies are for achieving sense gratification. Whereas the same effort to study, the same effort to do austerities and in order to excel and develop a talent in the material world, can be used for understanding Krishna. And by understanding Krishna, we are guaranteed to go back to Godhead in this lifetime. So why waste all our energy competing with other selfish people for sense gratification, when we could use the same energy to learn of our relationship with Krishna and go back to Godhead, free from the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. So we see anything that separates us from Krishna, that is demoniac, that is irreligious, that is horrible. And anything that brings us closer to Krishna, that's Krishna consciousness. So today's verse is all about understanding the real goal of Krishna consciousness. And unless we come to this position, even though we may chant, even though we may associate with some devotees, take prasadam, but until that desire to enjoy, independent of the Lord, and the desire to serve the Lord is developed, in other words, give up the desire to be the Purusha and accept the desire to be Das, the servant. That's why when we're initiated, we receive the name Das, because it means it shows us what is our constitutional position in relationship to Krishna and to all of the living entities. We should be Das for everyone and accept everyone else as Prabhu. But the Supreme Prabhu is Krishna and the spiritual master. And we are always Das. That is, not only Das, Das, Dasa, Dasanu, Dasa, the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the pure devotees, gopis who are servants of Krishna. Okay, we'll stop right there. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Are there any questions? Oh, you have a question? Huh? Okay. Hare Krishna. You have a question? Yeah.
So, Maharaj, this desire that you mentioned, but we are just tolerating this desire, but desires are still coming. So, will in this lifetime the desires will stop coming, or we have to tolerate the rest of the life?
No, you can't stop desiring, but you can.
Not the material desires. Like
I know, but you can purify the material desires. Just like, let's say there's competition, right? So you're competing. Like in high school, you're competing to get on some team, and then when you're on the team, you're competing against opposing team, and so there's competition. So in order to compete, you have to practice something, and it takes a lot of effort, and there's some austerity involved in it, right? You have to give up certain things in order to do this one thing that you want to become expert at. Well, and what's the desire? The desire is to win the contest and to enjoy what happens when you win. People become attracted to you because your extraordinary powers that you exhibit in running or jumping or whatever. And also, people want to be close to you. They speak nicely of you. You enjoy all these things. You enjoy the result of winning and competing and winning. Well, you see, there is yajna, dana, and tapasya. These are the three things that you do. You perform some rituals, you give in charity, and you engage in austerities. Right? So, in the mundane sense, the ritual is you go to school and you join a team, right? Or like you go to college and you have to go through what's called an initiation into the college, right? They give you orientation, how to do this, how to do that, be careful of this, be careful of that in the college and the campus. And then the other students, the older students, they give you some tests to see if you're going to be part of their fraternity or their sorority. See, there's these houses they have in the universities, and you have to pass a initiation ceremony where they make you drink alcohol, or they beat you up, or they throw you out the window. You know, sometimes people die in those initiation ceremonies, right? So the same thing is happening spiritually. Now you're not competing to become the enjoyer. You are competing to become the most humble servant. And it's not really competition. You're controlling. So there has to be tapasya. You have to control the material desires and replace them with spiritual desires. And now with these spiritual desires, you want to serve. And you're looking for every opportunity in order to serve the Lord. So before you were looking for every opportunity to win the race, or win the spelling bee, or win the scholarship. Now you're in a competition to be the most humble servant and the one who serves the most, because you feel, this attraction, strong attraction to Krishna. Just like before you felt a strong attraction for the fame of being a winner and victorious, and then you want to enjoy the sense gratification. But now in a purified form, you're engaging in all kinds of austerities to subjugate yourself more and more to Krishna, and all kinds of service. And your austerity is the service. It's not depriving yourself of something. You're taking full advantage of the service. So it's a positive thing. It's not a negative thing. That tapasya is not negative. It's actually positive. And so you see the same thing in the material world that's contaminated can be purified and engaged in Krishna consciousness. So the sense of ritual, the sense of giving a donation, like you go to college, you have to pay for it. You have to give, that's your donation, right? And then, and the tapasya is transforming your material desires into the desire to serve Krishna. See? And then depriving yourself of sense gratification, but offering all sense gratification to Krishna. So you see, there's the purification of what's happening in the material world. The pure form of what's happening in the material world is what's happening in the spiritual world, or even here through the process of surrender and devotion. You understand? So what we're doing in the material world based on selfishness, we can do the same thing based on serving Krishna. In other words, yagya, dana, tapa, rituals, donations or charity, and austerity. And that leads to, and so therefore, everything that's in the material world is existing in its pure form in the spiritual world. And we're adjusting to that pure form right here in the material world through the association of devotees and hearing the purports of Srila Prabhupada. We're accommodating ourselves to be able to naturally engage in devotional service without any hesitation. So this is whatever is in the material world exists in the spiritual world in the pure form. Here it's contaminated by this false ego and the false idea that I am the enjoyer. But as soon as you accept that Krishna is an enjoyer and we are subordinate to Krishna, at that point you become a devotee and you enter into the spiritual world gradually by that understanding. Okay. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. See, this is explained in the 18th chapter, in verse number 6. Let's see what it says. 6 and 7. All these activities, meaning yagya, dana, and tapasya, should be performed without attachment or any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty, O son of priesthood. That is my final opinion. So the yagya or the rituals, when you go to college, you have to have initiation rituals. And you have to pass the SAT test, and you have to do this, you have to do, those are like rituals, things that are mandatory that you have to do in order to get in. And once you're in, well, it's not cheap. You have to pay for it, right? So that's your donation, that's your charity, right? And then you have to do a lot of austerity for studying and taking tests and this thing and that thing, So that's the impure form, because the motivation is sense gratification. But when you do the same thing to please the senses of Krishna, the yagya, the dana, and the tapasya, then you prepare yourself to go back to Godhead. Because that's what's happening in the spiritual world. The yagya, dana, and tapa is all on the pure spiritual level. Haribol. So it says one should never stop these activities. That's the other. Let me see where that says that. Again, 18:6. Let's see where it says that. You should stop doing it in a selfish way, but never should stop. It says, text 18:7. It says, prescribed duties should never be renounced. If one gives up his prescribed duties because of illusion, such renunciation is said to be in the mode of ignorance. So we should never stop cooking for the Lord, offering to the Lord, accepting the prasadam of the Lord, chanting your rounds, waking up early. All these things are part of the eternal activities that are going on in the spiritual world. So we're practicing for it now. And then when it becomes second nature to us, then we go back to Godhead. Haribol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. prasade mure sarva asa. Chakshudan dilage janme janme Prabhu se. Ide gaya ide prokasito. Prema bhakti jaha hote avidya vinasa jage. Vede gaya janara charito. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Bindu Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Chakra Ghosh Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Gaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samakunda Radha Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Ki Jai. Jamuna Maya Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Prem. All glories to Samudras, all glories to Samudras, all glories to Samudras, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Granga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavane Ki Jai. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is perfection and fulfills all destiny. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotee. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavan Ki Jai.